Aloha, Ronnie Landis here. So I wanted to share a message that I think is so timely for all of us. And I'm a little choked up right now about it just because I literally have been experiencing an integration of all the different facets of my past, of my personality, of all the different stories, all the different identities I've carried out in my life, and everything that's led me to who I am now and who I'm becoming, the vision that I'm crafting and also integrating into who I am now. And for me, what comes up out of all this as I assume the role of a leader in a world void of leadership, it's kind of a heavy weight that I am integrating into my physiology, into who I am. I've been carrying this weight for a long time in my life. And I think why this comes up for me right now and why I feel so compelled to share it with all of you out there is because it's something that I haven't really actively voiced out in the world. And I feel like it's time to do that. And that's of the topic of depression and dealing with bouts of depression and sorrow and inner agony, inner conflict that a lot of us go through. You know, one of the reasons why Star Wars was such an iconic movie and touched the hearts of a generation of people is because, you know, the archetype of the hero, the hero's journey, Joseph Campbell's famous theme that so many of us go through is embedded in our archetype as human beings, especially for men, not just men, of course, but as a man, I can speak about this from that perspective, is that a lot of us carry this weight on top of us, carry the weight of the world, because we live in a world that's so disharmonic from nature. We've been literally insulated from the natural rhythms of our planet, from humanity, from the sanctity of life, from animal life, from environmental life, from human life. And it's led a lot of us to carry these identities of who we are, who we believe we are, who we need to be in order to cause some kind of change in the world. And almost to a point of martyrdom, to be a martyr, to sacrifice ourselves for the perceivable benefit of other people. And I've been carrying this weight for a long time in my life. And it's coming up for me really intensely right now because I've been doing a very specific type of cleanse, a psychological, physical, and emotional spiritual reset, and it's brought up a lot of these literally embedded memories within me that are coming up to the surface, and I just feel like it would be a disservice not to share these perspectives with you. You see, all my life I carried the idea of only the strong survive, right? What does not kill you makes you stronger. So I always carried that in my life, no matter what kind of obstacles, challenges, turmoil I felt. I could use things like martial arts, I could use basketball, I could use physical training, I could use poetry, I could use writing as a way to exorcise those demons that I felt competing with me. And I think the message that I'm wanting to channel through right now is the idea that depression is some kind of chemical imbalance. It's some kind of neurotransmitter imbalance that affects our dopamine or serotonin receptors, and we need antidepressants, psychotropic drugs, and this kind of thing to actually modulate those chemical imbalances. And there is a facet of that when it comes to food allergies, when it comes to adopting the improper diet for too long of a time. It can cause these actual biological and physiological imbalances. But what I'm speaking about specifically is the literal bouts of depression and sorrow that a lot of us actually experience just because it's part of the purging process of being an evolved human being or evolving human being in this world now, when the energy, the atmospheric energy, is literally intensifying. And so a lot of us feel this weight on our shoulders that we have to carry the flag of freedom and liberation in order for us all as humanity to be free, right? And what does that mean to be free? I think for me it means to be free of conflict. I've dealt with a lot of inner conflict for a long time in my life, and it's all that stuff is literally the residue and the crystallized memory patterns that have been patterned into my musculature, into my nervous system, have been released to some extent. There's always more work to be done, but a lot of it's coming up right now, and I'm finding myself having to engage in sorrow release, the sorrow of opportunities missed, opportunities not taken advantage of in my life, not self-inflicted judgments about not being good enough, not living up to my potential, not doing the right thing at the right time. All those kind of resentments and judgments I have or have had about myself are being brought to the surface, and I'm literally crying it out. I mean, that is one of the big messages, actually. A lot of, especially for men, is that it's okay to cry. It's okay. It's okay to release those judgments that we hold, right? Because many of us we never grew up with any kind of rite of passage. We never grew up with any kind of like real, true male figures that help guide us into a role of leadership, into a role of really becoming a fully holistic human being, to be a well-integrated person in a society that literally opposes nobility, opposes human rights, opposes so many things that have to do with the natural progression of the life cycle. We literally live in a culture invested in death. And that's put me personally at odds with many things that I've done in my life, and had to reevaluate the hierarchy of my value system. I had to really take a deep look and think about how I'm being influenced by the marketing in the world, how I'm being influenced by what I believe people want, right? Being a public figure, you actually go through this process of unraveling all the storylines that are literally placed upon you when you're trying to appeal to a large group of people. And I want to really share with all of you that I'm not perfect. I'm definitely not perfect. And I don't know the answer when it comes to how do you deal with depression? How do you deal with intense amounts of stress that seem to just come up out of nowhere? I don't know the exact answer. I know for me, I've used fitness, I've used working out, I've used exercise, I've used training, I've used vision crafting as a way to keep me moving forward. As the Bible says, those without vision will perish. And that's the one thing I can impart to all of you, is that if you are moving towards a noble ideal, the realization of a worthy goal, a goal that's worthy of you, a goal that's worthy of your genius, of the magnitude of genius that you hold inside the treasure chest of your heart, it can be magnified so much more than who you are right now. Now, I've carried that idea for a long time, right? The fact that I'm more capable of becoming my true perfect self. In alchemy terms, they talk about achieving the perfect state, right? Well, that's how I look at alchemy from a spiritual perspective, is that we're literally transmuting and exchanging who we are now for who we could become. And a big part of that process is literally letting go of all the layers of congestion, all the metabolic, digestive congestion in your body that's cementing itself in your intestinal tract, in your liver, gallbladder, and your kidneys. All that stuff needs to be filtered out. It needs to be homogenized and liquefied and literally moved out of the body. But then once you get through the physical part, then that's when all the submerged emotions and programs start to rise to the surface. And then that's where the next stage of work begins. It's very similar to doing an ayahuasca journey, or a psilocybin or iboga, or some of these other plant medicines that we all know about that are being used to actually help us express out all the old congested crap that is no longer serving us. And then after you do that journey, this is a part a lot of people miss about the psychedelic or the entheogenic journey, is that that's not really where the work is done. You see, the work is done after you get the messages you need to get from that experience, and then you move on into your normal day-to-day life, and you integrate those messages, those insights, into the daily fabric of your life. And I found for me the best way, and I think this is true for most people, is that the best way to integrate these things is to be gentle with yourself, to not beat yourself up, to allow yourself to be open, to be vulnerable, to open your heart, to open your mind, to open your body, your neuromuscular system, and explore all the different activities, all the different modalities, the forms of nutrition, the forms of connecting back to the cycles of nature through living spring water, through getting solar nutrition, photonic nutrition from the sun, getting under the sun, getting connected with sun gazing, getting barefoot on the earth, getting in nature in general, and appreciating the beauty and the symmetry that is only present in nature. And doing these things daily helps you actually integrate those pieces of the puzzle that sometimes look like cerebral constellation points, right? If you look into the stars, you look into the sky, you see a constellation of stars, right? Well, a lot of times in our mind that happens. We have a constellation of ideas floating around the cerebral space, and a lot of us have trouble picking those things and pulling those closer to our physiology, to our body, right? And integrating those into the structure of our body and becoming one with those things. So I think the way I'd love to just finish this thought out is to share with everyone that the way I've really, I would have used the word contended because I come from a competitive background. You see, I grew up without a male figure. I didn't know my father growing up. He wasn't around. My mom was always working. Me and my grandmother, we had arguments, issues all throughout my life. So I felt very alone. I felt that there was no one to talk to. There was no one that understood me, and I just felt like an alien almost. And now people that do work with me, like channeled work and stuff like that, actually say that I'm a hybrid alien that is somehow integrating into this human experience. Interesting concept there. But ultimately, we're all experiencing these waves of emotion. The reservoir of emotion existing within each of us is very real. And it's something that's so needed, so special about us if we learn to tap into that river and that flow of emotion that's literally flowing through us. A lot of times I find, at least my perspective is that when a lot of people commit suicide, there's obviously a spiritual conflict there, but there's also a checking out that happens with people. A lot of people live in this world that is very out of harmony, and they feel like they have nothing to give. They feel like they have nothing to do here, so they just check out early, and then they adopt habits of death, the culture of death. They subtle urges of death starts to come over people, so they pick up habits like smoking and drinking and staying up all night and partying and eating crappy, fake, processed, genetically modified food, and they don't seem to have any kind of run. They're stressed out, and they're causing arguments and disharmony with their relationships. And I don't want to point the blame at anyone. I want to say that I've been there, and I'm not perfect about it, but at least I'm more aware about my own habits, my own tendencies, my own compulsory reactions to certain things that trigger me. And I'm working on that. And within my own process, it's created a vacuum of compassion, an open space of compassion in my heart for human beings, right? For other people. We talk a lot about the sanctity of animals and factory farming and the atrocious acts that are being taken out on animal life. And I'm all about that. I think that is one of the most powerful topics that we need to instill into the hearts and minds of children everywhere, because there's a disenchantment happening in our world based on these activities. But at the same time, we need to open our heart to other people and realize that you can't really know what's going on with someone else unless you put your foot in their shoes. Unless you're walking in their shoes, you don't know what's going on in the inner domains of that human being. So just having compassion for other people and having compassion again for yourself. Looking yourself in the mirror and realizing that you're not at the end. If you're still alive, like success philosopher Les Brown always says, if you're still here, your work is not done yet. If you're still here, you're still standing, you're still talking, walking, breathing, your work is not done yet. And you don't know when that activation point is going to take hold of you, and you are going to get activated on your genius. You're going to get activated on your life mission and your purpose, and the moment will come when that becomes so obvious to you that you have no choice but to invest all your life force potential into the realization of a noble ideal, a progressive goal worthy of your genius. And that's what I want to share with you guys, is that each one of you has it. We all have it inside of us. And sometimes we have to go through the layers of who we are and let go of things and open up to the fact that everything that we've done in our life, every experience that we've had in our life is only laying the foundation for the future us to be revealed. And so we don't need to be in a rush, in a hurry to get to the finish line, because there is no finish line. There is no finish line. What a depressing thought that is in the first place, that there's going to be a finish line, then our work is all done and it's game over. What is the point of that? I'll let you think about that. But I think the point is that while we're enduring changing tides in the climate of our world right now, while we're exploring our own spirituality and our own rituals that we want to carry out for our life based on the values that we hold in our life, having ease, grace, and flow about it is really, really powerful right now. We're out of the age of do all the time, and we're getting into the age of receptivity, of receiving, right? Altruistic receptivity is really key. Is that we all want to give, really, truly, at our core. We want to be able to contribute to humanity, and at the same time, we need to reserve our resources in order to be able to do that. And I don't know if this video feels like it's going in a few different directions. Hopefully, it's hitting the mark for some of you out there. When it comes to depression, it's a topic that is so charged emotionally, and there's so many reasons. I'm not a psychotherapist. I've studied psychiatry and some of the great minds in that field. But from my own experience and working with a lot of people in this area, I can say that we're all looking for something to pour our life into. And sticking around long enough to find out what that is really the key there. And to continue wherever you can to do random acts of kindness, to just be a better version of yourself, to continue to work on your behaviors, your patterns, and to do healing work that's going to allow you to express more of who you really are and is going to help you let go of all that you are not, is really, really, in my opinion, the key to the self-liberation process. So I hope this video is helpful for you guys. I really didn't have a specific direction or a script to work from. I just wanted to speak strictly from my heart and what's coming up for me right now. And I'm practicing being more vulnerable as a public figure and just as a person in general, in speaking from my heart instead of speaking from my mind all the time, right? The mind makes a perfect follower, but when it's leading the ship, it leads us into a whole road of rationality and bottom line thinking and materialism and things that only allow us to be satisfied in the moment, but don't allow us to reach for fulfillment in our lives, right? Daily acts of gratitude are really key for this. So anyways, I'm going to end right there. Peace and blessings, everyone. Ronnie Landis here, signing off.